Guard Captain Lee Do-hyun stood before the massive mirror wall of the Valyrian royal palace, trying to make his human uniform look as impressive as possible. The fabric felt thin and weak compared to the thick armored suits worn by his fellow guards. Every morning was the same routine, adjusting his belt, checking his weapon, and preparing himself for another day of being the outsider. The other guards towered over him like living mountains. Each Valyrian had 6 powerful arms that could crush stone and skin, that looked like it was made of polished metal. When they moved, their footsteps echoed through the crystal halls like thunder. Do-hyun's single pair of arms and soft human skin made him look like a child playing dress-up in their world. "There goes the pet human again," he heard one guard whisper in their musical language. They thought he couldn't understand them, but Do-hyun had spent months learning their tongue. The insults hurt more than any physical blow ever could. Why? "Did the Queen choose him?" another guard asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "He's so small and weak, one of us could break him with a single finger." Do-hyun kept his face calm, but inside his chest burned with frustration. He had served in Earth's military for 15 years, survived 3 wars and earned more medals than most soldiers see in a lifetime. Yet here, none of that mattered. Here he was just the strange little creature that Queen Naya had picked for. Reasons nobody understood. The truth was, even Do-hyun didn't fully understand why she had chosen him. 3 months ago, he had been part of Earth's diplomatic security team. Just another face in the crowd of humans visiting this magnificent alien world. But during a routine meeting, Queen Naya had looked directly at him and said, "You will join my personal guard." The Valyrian court had gone silent with shock. "Your Majesty," the head of her guard had protested, "humans are not suitable for royal protection. They lack the strength, the natural armor, the multiple limbs needed for combat." But Queen Naya had simply smiled, her ethereal form glowing brighter. "Sometimes the smallest key opens the largest door," she had said in her melodic voice. Now, months later, Do-hyun still felt like he was trying to prove himself worthy of that trust. Every day brought new challenges and new doubts from everyone around him. The other guards treated him like a curiosity at best, a dangerous liability at worst. The court nobles whispered that having a human guard was an insult to Valyrian tradition. Tonight would be different, though. Tonight was the grand banquet celebrating the new trade agreement between Earth and Valyria. Diplomats from both worlds would be present, along with representatives from dozens of other alien species. It was the biggest event Do-hyun had ever been assigned to protect. As he walked through the palace corridors toward the banquet hall, something felt off. His human instincts, sharpened by years of military service, were sending warning signals through his mind. The way some guards avoided eye contact, the unusual tension in the air, the subtle changes in routine, it all added up to danger. But when he tried to share his concerns with the other guards, they dismissed him immediately. "Humans worry too. Much," they said. "Your kind sees threats everywhere because you're naturally fearful." Do-hyun gritted his teeth and continued his patrol, that nagging feeling growing stronger with each step toward the banquet hall. The banquet hall sparkled like a galaxy of stars. Hundreds of alien dignitaries filled the massive space, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Do-hyun stood at his post near the royal table, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. That uncomfortable feeling in his gut had only gotten stronger as the evening progressed. Queen Naya looked absolutely magnificent tonight. Her ethereal form glowed with soft blue light, and her voice carried like music when she spoke to the assembled guests. She wore the traditional ceremonial robes of her people, flowing fabrics that seemed to move like liquid starlight. This was her moment to shine, to celebrate the new friendship between their worlds. The ceremonial toast was about to begin. According to Valyrian tradition, the queen would drink first from the sacred goblet, then pass it to the Earth ambassador. It was supposed to symbolize trust and unity between their species. Do-hyun watched as the royal servants prepared the ancient crystal cup, filling it with the traditional ceremonial wine. But something was wrong. Do-hyun's military training kicked in, and he started noticing details that others missed. The servant, handling the goblet, moved differently than usual. His hands shook slightly, and he kept glancing nervously at the crowd. The liquid in the cup seemed to shimmer in a way that didn't look natural. "My fellow beings," Queen Naya announced, her voice carrying across the silent hall, "tonight we celebrate not just trade, but the beginning of a new era of friendship." She reached for the goblet with her delicate, glowing hands. The crowd held its breath in anticipation. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for, but Do-hyun couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. His human instincts, developed over millions of years of evolution, were screaming danger. Every fiber of his being told him to act, even though his logical mind couldn't explain why. Time seemed to slow down as Queen Naya brought the goblet to her lips. Do-hyun saw her perfect face reflected in the crystal surface. He saw the expectant faces of the crowd. He saw the nervous servant backing away too quickly. Without thinking, without hesitation, without any regard for protocol or consequences, Do-hyun threw himself forward. His human reflexes, faster than the surprised Valyrian guards could react, carried him across the space between his post and the royal table. "No!" he shouted, diving toward the queen. His shoulder slammed into her midsection, sending both of them tumbling to the floor. The precious goblet flew from her hands, spinning through the air like a deadly comet. It crashed against the crystal floor with a sound like breaking stars. The liquid inside splashed across the polished surface, and immediately the most horrifying thing happened. The floor began to melt. The crystal dissolved like ice in boiling water, sending up clouds of toxic steam. The hissing sound filled the air as the poison ate through the supposedly indestructible royal flooring. Chaos erupted in the banquet hall. Guests screamed and ran in all directions. The massive Valyrian guards surrounded Do-hyun in seconds, their 6 arms grabbing him and lifting him off the stunned queen. "Assassin!" someone shouted. "The human attacked the queen! Execute him immediately!" Another voice demanded. Do-hyun didn't resist as the guard's powerful hands held him. He was breathing hard, his heart pounding from the adrenaline rush. But he felt no regret. The evidence was right there on the floor, the smoking, dissolving crystal where the poison had landed. Queen Naya slowly stood up, her ethereal form flickering with shock and confusion. She looked down at the destroyed floor, then up at Do-hyun's face. In her ancient, wise eyes, he saw the moment when understanding dawned. The prison cell, deep beneath the palace, felt like a tomb. Do-hyun sat on the cold stone bench, staring at the energy bars that hummed with deadly power. Any attempt to touch them would mean instant death. The Valyrian guards had made that very clear when they threw him in here 3 days ago. He could still hear the angry voices echoing from the floors above. Half the court wanted him executed immediately for attacking their beloved queen. The other half wanted him tortured first to find out who sent him. Nobody seemed to care that he had actually saved her life. The footsteps in the corridor were different tonight. Lighter, more graceful than the heavy stomping of the guards. Do-hyun looked up as a hooded figure approached his cell, moving like flowing water through the shadows. "Do not speak loudly," came Queen Naya's unmistakable voice. "There are ears everywhere in this place." She lowered her hood and her gentle glow illuminated the dark prison. Even here in this awful place, she looked like a being made of starlight. But her face showed worry and confusion that Do-hyun had never seen before. "Your Majesty," he whispered, standing up, "you shouldn't be here. If your guards find you talking to me—" "My guards think I am in my private chambers, meditating," she said softly. "I needed to understand something. How did you know about the poison?" "Our most advanced sensors detected nothing wrong with that wine." Do-hyun ran his hands through his hair, trying to find the right words. "I don't know how to explain it. It was just a feeling. Something felt wrong about the whole situation." Queen Naya stepped closer to the energy bars, her eyes studying his face intently. "In my 3,000 years of life, I have never met anyone who could sense danger that our technology cannot detect. This is impossible by all logical standards." "Maybe logic isn't everything," Do-hyun replied. "Sometimes you have to trust your gut feelings, even when they don't make sense." The queen was quiet for a long moment. "There is someone I want you to meet," she finally said. "His name is Kale. He is my most trusted investigator. If there truly is a conspiracy against me, he will find it." 2 days later, Investigator Kyle arrived at the prison. He was different from the other Valerians Do-hyun had met. Smaller, with only 4 arms instead of 6, and eyes that seemed to see everything. His job was to solve the mysteries that others couldn't figure out. "The Queen tells me you have unusual abilities," Kyle said, settling down outside the cell. "I am skeptical, but the evidence of that poison cannot be ignored." "What do you want to know?" Do-hyun asked. "Tell me about the banquet. What exactly made you suspicious?" Do-hyun closed his eyes, remembering that night. The servant who handled the goblet. He was nervous, but trying to hide it. His hands shook, just a little bit. He kept looking toward the back exit like he was planning to run, and he backed away too fast after serving the wine. Kyle frowned. "Our security recordings show nothing unusual about his behavior." "That's because you're looking for obvious signs," Do-hyun explained. "Humans learn to hide their emotions and lie from childhood. We can spot tiny details that give people away because we do it ourselves." This seemed to confuse Kyle greatly. "Valerians do not lie. We consider deception to be the lowest form of dishonor, and that's exactly why someone could fool you," Do-hyun said. "You don't expect it, so you don't look for it." Over the next several days, Kyle brought Do-hyun security footage from the weeks leading up to the banquet. Working together through the prison bars, they began to piece together a disturbing pattern. Do-hyun pointed out subtle changes in people's behavior that the logical Valerian mind had dismissed as unimportant. "Look at this guard here," Do-hyun said, pointing at the screen. 3 weeks ago he walks normally, but in this footage from last week, see how he keeps his right arm close to his body? He's hiding something under his armor." "How can you possibly know that?" Kyle asked, amazed. "Because I've done it myself," Do-hyun admitted. "When you're trying to hide weapons or secret messages, you move differently. Your body language changes. Slowly, a picture began to emerge of people acting strangely, having secret meetings and changing their normal routines. The conspiracy was bigger than anyone had imagined. The pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to come together, and the picture they formed made Do-hyun's blood run cold. He sat in his cell, staring at the evidence that Kyle had spread across a portable table, documents, photographs, communication records. Everything pointed to something much bigger and more dangerous than a simple assassination attempt. "Noble House Vex," Kyle said quietly, his 4 hands organizing the papers. "One of the oldest and most respected families in our society. I cannot believe they would betray the crown." Do-hyun studied the photographs of Lord Vex and his family. To Kyle, they probably looked like any other noble Valerians, tall, dignified, with the traditional 6 arms and metallic skin. But Do-hyun saw something else entirely. Years of reading human faces had taught him to spot the tiny signs that most people missed. "Look at Lord Vex's expression in this picture from last month," Do-hyun pointed out. "See how his eyes don't match. His smile and his stance. He's standing like someone who's planning something. Humans call it guilty body language. This is impossible to detect," Kyle protested. "How can you read emotions from such small details?" "Because humans have been lying to each other for thousands of years," Do-hyun explained. "We had to learn to spot deception to survive. Your people are too honest. You never developed these skills." The investigation had taken a dangerous turn when Do-hyun suggested something that horrified the logical Valerian mind. "We need to trick them," he had told Kyle. "Set a trap using false information." Kyle had been deeply disturbed by this idea. "Deception is dishonorable. We cannot stoop to such methods." "Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire," Do-hyun replied. "If they're using lies and tricks against you, being honest won't save you." Reluctantly, Kyle had agreed to try Do-hyun's plan. They spread a false rumor that the Queen was planning to increase security around the palace, making it seem like she suspected something. Then they watched to see who would react. The results were immediate and terrifying. Within hours, secret messages began flying between Noble House Vex and unknown contacts. The communication codes were broken, revealing conversations that made both investigators sick to their stomachs. "The human took the bait perfectly," read one message from Lord Vex. "He saved her from the poison, just as we predicted. Now the whole galaxy thinks humans are heroes. Phase 1 complete," came the reply from someone signing themselves as Kandrian Command. "The alliance between Earth and Valeria is stronger than ever." Perfect for Phase 2. Do-hyun felt his heart racing as he read the documents. They wanted me to save her, he whispered. The whole poisoning was designed to make humans look good. Kyle's metallic face had gone pale with shock. But why? What could they gain from strengthening our alliance? The answer came in the next set of intercepted messages. The Kandrian Empire, long-time enemies of both Earth and Valyria, had been planning this for years. They had corrupted noble House Vex with promises of power and wealth. The plan was brilliant in its evil simplicity. First, make humans look like heroes by having one save the Queen. This would bring Earth and Valyria closer together, making both planets drop their guard. Then, when the Alliance celebration was at its peak, the Kandrians would launch a surprise attack on both worlds simultaneously. With their fleets focused on trade and diplomacy instead of defense, both planets would fall easily. They're using our friendship against us, Do-hyun realized. The stronger our alliance gets, the weaker our defenses become. But the worst part was still to come. Hidden in the deepest files were plans for after the invasion. The Kandrians intended to enslave both species, using humans as expendable soldiers and Valyrians as living batteries for their technology. Billions of lives hung in the balance. When is the attack supposed to happen? Kyle asked, his voice shaking. Do-hyun found the date in the files and felt his world crash down around him. Tomorrow night, during the grand celebration of our alliance, every important leader from both worlds will be in one place. They had less than 24 hours to stop an invasion that had been planned for decades. The alarm in Do-hyun's cell started screaming at exactly midnight. Red lights flashed through the prison corridors as emergency sirens wailed like wounded animals. Something was very wrong in the palace above. Kyle burst into the prison level, his forearms carrying weapons and looking more terrified than Do-hyun had ever seen him. "They know," he gasped, breathing heavily. "Somehow they found out about our investigation." "Who knows?" Do-hyun asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. Everyone. Lord Vex, his supporters, the Kandrian agents planted throughout the palace. "They are coming for you right now." Kyle's hands shook as he deactivated the energy bars of the cell. "We have maybe 5 minutes before they reach this level." Do-hyun stepped out of his prison for the first time in weeks, his legs unsteady from sitting so long. "How many are coming?" "At least 20 guards, all corrupted by House Vex. They have orders to kill you and make it look like you were trying to escape." Kale handed him a Valyrian energy weapon. "I know you're not trained on our technology, but it's better than nothing." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the stone stairway. Multiple sets of boots, moving fast and angry. Do-hyun's military training kicked in immediately, his mind shifting into combat mode. "This way," Kyle whispered, leading him toward a maintenance tunnel. "We can reach the upper levels through the service passages." But Do-hyun had a different idea. Years of fighting guerrilla wars on Earth had taught him that sometimes the best defense was a good offense. "No, we're going to use their own system against them." "What do you mean?" Kyle asked, confused. "The palace security network. Can you access it from here?" Kyle nodded, pulling out a small device. "Yes, but what good will that do? They control most of the guards now." Do-hyun smiled grimly. "They control the guards, but they think like Valyrians. Logical, predictable, honorable. I think like a human." He quickly explained his plan as the footsteps grew louder. Kyle looked horrified at first, then amazed, then excited. That's completely insane. It might actually work." The corrupted guards reached the prison level just as Do-hyun and Kyle disappeared into the ventilation system. Behind them, confused shouts echoed through the empty corridors as the enemies found nothing but open cells and darkness. "Where did they go?" someone roared in anger, but Do-hyun was already 3 levels up, crawling through spaces designed for maintenance robots. His human size, so often a disadvantage among the giant Valyrians, now worked perfectly for moving through tight spaces that the 6-armed aliens couldn't fit through. The first part of his plan activated when the corrupted guards tried to use their communication devices. Instead of reaching their allies, they found their signals blocked by the palace's own security system. Do-hyun had convinced Kale to reprogram the network to treat them as intruders. "Communications are down," he heard someone shout from below. "Something's wrong with the system." Phase 2 began when the lights started going out, section by section. Not all at once, which would have been suspicious, but in a pattern that herded the corrupted guards exactly where Do-hyun wanted them. Into the main corridor of the security level, where Guard Captain Yoon Minho was waiting. Minho had been one of the most vocal critics of having a human in the Royal Guard. He was massive, even by Valerian standards, with 6 arms that could bend steel and skin like polished armor. He had never hidden his belief that humans were too weak and unreliable for serious security work, but when 20 corrupted guards came charging down his corridor, weapons drawn and clearly intent on murder, Minho didn't hesitate. His honor as a royal guard meant more than his prejudice against humans. The fight was brutal, but brief. Minho's incredible strength and combat training made short work of guards who had expected to find only a confused human prisoner. When the last attacker fell, he stood breathing heavily, looking around at the destruction. That's when Do-hyun dropped down from the ceiling vent behind him. "Thank you," Do-hyun said simply. Minho turned around, his 6 arms still holding weapons, his metallic face showing complete shock. How did you?" "I used their own security system to herd them to you," Do-hyun explained. "I knew you'd fight them once you saw they were traitors." For the first time since they'd met, Minho looked at Do-hyun with something other than contempt. "That was tactically brilliant." "We're not done yet," Do-hyun warned. "This was just the first wave. The real attack starts tomorrow night." The grand celebration hall buzzed with excitement as dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered for the alliance ceremony. Do-hyun stood at his assigned post, but this time everything was different. Instead of being the outsider everyone doubted, he was now secretly coordinating the palace's entire defense strategy. Queen Naya moved gracefully through the crowd, greeting ambassadors and trade representatives. To everyone watching, this looked like a normal diplomatic celebration. But hidden throughout the hall, loyal guards waited for Do-hyun's signal. The trap was set. "Phase 1 beginning now," came Kyle's voice through Do-hyun's hidden earpiece. "Kandrian, ships detected entering our atmosphere." Right on schedule, just as the intercepted messages had predicted, Do-hyun touched his comm device twice, sending the prearranged signal to all loyal guards. The defense of Valeria was about to begin. The first sign of trouble came when the palace's main power grid started flickering. Most guests assumed it was a technical problem, but Do-hyun knew better. The Kandrian infiltrators were trying to disable the security systems before their main force arrived. "Minho, take your team to the power core," Do-hyun whispered into his communicator. "Stop them from cutting our electricity." "Understood," came the reply. It still amazed Do-hyun how much Minho's attitude had changed. The giant Valerian who once called him weak now followed his orders without question. The second wave of the attack came through the palace's loading docks. Kandrian soldiers, wearing stolen Valerian uniforms, tried to enter through the service entrances. But Do-hyun had predicted this move too. Instead of meeting them with direct resistance, he had the loyal guards fall back, making it look like the infiltrators were winning easily. The Kandrians moved deeper into the palace, following what seemed like fleeing defenders. They had no idea they were being led into a carefully prepared trap. "Now," Do-hyun commanded. Security doors slammed shut behind the infiltrators, trapping them in corridors that suddenly filled with sleeping gas. Within minutes, 24 enemy soldiers were unconscious and captured without a single shot being fired. But the real test came when the main Kandrian force arrived. Their ships landed on the palace grounds like falling meteors, disgorging hundreds of heavily armed soldiers. These weren't infiltrators trying to sneak around. These were professional warriors coming for a direct fight. The Kandrians had studied Valerian military tactics for years. They knew exactly how the logical, honorable defenders would respond to their attack patterns. They expected organized formations, predictable counterattacks, and straightforward defensive strategies. Instead, they got chaos. Do-hyun had convinced the Valerian commanders to abandon their traditional battle plans. Instead of meeting the attack head-on, they used hit-and-run tactics that the Kandrians had never seen before. Small groups of defenders would attack from unexpected directions, then disappear before the enemy could respond. "This makes no sense," He heard one Kandrian commander shouting through the intercepted communications. "They're not following any logical pattern." That was exactly the point. Human military history was full of unconventional tactics that had won battles against superior forces. Do-hyun was using everything from ancient guerrilla warfare to modern special operations techniques adapted for alien technology. The confusion in the Kandrian ranks grew worse when the palace's own security system started working against them in impossible ways. Doors would open when they expected them to be locked. Elevators would stop at the wrong floors, and hallway lights would guide them into dead ends. But the most dangerous moment came when Lord Vex and his remaining conspirators made their final, desperate move. While the battle raged outside, they cornered Queen Naya in the ceremony hall, surrounded by terrified diplomats. "Your Majesty," Lord Vex said, his voice dripping with false politeness, "the Kandrians are winning. Surrender now, and I can guarantee your safety." Queen Naya stood tall, her ethereal form glowing with defiant light. "I would rather die than betray my people." "That can be arranged," Lord Vex replied, raising a high-powered energy weapon. Do-hyun was on the opposite side of the hall when he saw what was happening. The weapon in Lord Vex's hands was military-grade, designed to kill even a powerful being like Queen Naya with a single shot. There was no time to run across the room, no time to call for help. There was only time for one desperate choice as Lord. Vex pulled the trigger. Do-hyun threw himself through the air, using every ounce of speed and strength his human body possessed. The energy blast meant for the Queen struck him full in the chest, sending him crashing to the marble floor in agony. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Queen Naya's horrified face and the sound of loyal guards finally reaching the ceremony hall. The medical bay's white walls seemed to glow with their own light as Do-hyun slowly opened his eyes. Every part of his body felt like it had been hit by lightning, which wasn't far from the truth. The Kandrian energy weapon had nearly killed him, burning through his chest and stopping just inches from his heart. "Don't try to move yet," came a gentle voice. Dr. Hana, the palace's chief medical officer, appeared beside his bed. She was one of the few Valyrians who had always treated him with respect, even before he saved the Queen. "You've been unconscious for 6 days. 6 days." Do-hyun tried to sit up, panic flooding through him. "The Queen, is she safe? What happened to the invasion?" "She's perfectly fine, thanks to you," Dr. Hana said, gently pushing him back down. "And the invasion failed completely. Lord Vex and his conspirators are in prison, the Kandrian forces retreated, and the galaxy is talking about nothing else." Over. The next few hours, as Do-hyun's strength slowly returned, visitors began arriving to tell him the full story of what had happened while he lay fighting for his life. Kyle was the first, his forearms full of data tablets and evidence files. "The interrogation of Lord Vex revealed everything," Kyle explained, his voice still showing amazement at what they had discovered. "The Kandrian Empire had been planning this invasion for 20 years. They corrupted noble families on dozens of worlds, all preparing for one massive coordinated attack. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. The Kandrians hadn't just targeted Earth and Valyria, they had planned to conquer half the galaxy in a single night. Corrupt nobles and officials on every major world had been secretly working together, weakening their planet's defenses from within. But your actions ruined everything," Kyle continued. "When you saved Queen Naya from the poison, it forced them to accelerate their timeline. They had to attack before they were fully ready." Minho arrived next, looking uncomfortable in the medical bay but determined to speak his piece. The massive guard who had once despised humans now seemed like a different person entirely. "I owe you an apology," Minho said, his metallic face showing genuine emotion. "I thought humans were weak because you don't have our physical strength. I was wrong. You have something we don't, the ability to think in ways that our enemies can't predict." The real revelation came when Queen Naya herself visited, accompanied by officials from the Galactic Council. Their faces showed a mixture of awe, gratitude, and something that looked almost like fear. "Captain Lee Do-hyun," the Queen said formally, "you have done more than save my life. You have exposed a conspiracy that threatened the freedom of billions of beings across the galaxy." The Galactic Council representative, an ancient creature with tentacles instead of arms, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. The evidence you helped gather has revealed Kandrian agents on 47 different worlds. We are still arresting conspirators and dismantling their networks. But the most shocking news came from Earth itself. Ambassador Park Ji-won had arrived from Earth with a delegation of human officials, all looking stunned by the sudden change in their species' status. Every major civilization in the galaxy is requesting human advisors, Ambassador Park explained. They want our military strategists, our investigators, our security experts. Overnight, humanity has gone from being the newest members of galactic society to being among the most valued. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Kandrian plan had been designed to make humans look like heroes in order to weaken the galaxy's defenses. Instead, it had proven that human unpredictability and intuition were exactly what the galaxy needed to protect itself. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years, Do-hyun realized. We learned to survive by being unpredictable, by thinking outside the rules. Other species evolved to be logical and honorable, but we evolved to be survivors. Queen Naya nodded, her ethereal form glowing brighter with excitement. Exactly. What we saw as primitive traits, your tendency toward deception, your chaotic military tactics, your ability to make intuitive leaps, these are actually advanced survival skills. The galaxy would never be the same. The revelation that humans possessed unique abilities that no other species had developed was changing everything. Trade agreements, military alliances, scientific collaborations, all were being rewritten to include human perspectives. But for Do-hyun, lying in that medical bed, the most important thing was simpler. He had proven that sometimes being different wasn't a weakness. Sometimes being the outsider was exactly what the world needed. The communication center of the Valyrian royal palace had never been busier. Day and night, messages poured in from every corner of the galaxy, all asking the same thing. Could they have humans help protect their worlds too? Do-hyun watched from his recovery bed as dozens of alien diplomats filled the hallways, waiting for meetings that had been impossible to imagine just weeks ago. "This is incredible," Ambassador Park Ji-won said, shuffling through a stack of formal requests that reached almost to the ceiling. The Zephyrian Collective wants human military advisors. The Crystalline Federation is asking for human investigators. Even the proud Titan Empire is requesting human security consultants. Each message told the same story. Advanced civilizations that had existed for thousands of years were suddenly realizing they had blind spots in their thinking. Their logical, predictable minds had made them vulnerable to enemies who thought differently. They needed humans to see what they couldn't see. Dr. Hana helped Do-hyun sit up straighter so he could read some of the messages himself. Each one was more amazing than the last. The Aquatic Confederation had discovered Kandrian infiltrators in their government after human investigators pointed out behavioral patterns their own people had missed. The Desert Nomad Alliance had uncovered a conspiracy that their most advanced computers couldn't detect, but human intuition had spotted in minutes. "Look at this one," Ambassador Park said, holding up a golden tablet covered in flowing script. "The Mystic Order of Andromeda is offering to trade their most sacred meditation techniques for lessons in human tactical thinking." The Mystic Order was legendary throughout the galaxy for their spiritual wisdom and powerful mental abilities. The fact that they wanted to learn from humans was almost impossible to believe. Minho appeared in the doorway, his massive frame barely fitting through the entrance. "Captain, there are more delegations arriving every hour. The spaceport is completely full. We've had to start directing ships to land in the city." Through the window, Do-hyun could see the evidence of what Minho was talking about. Spacecraft of every size and shape filled the sky, creating a rainbow of colors and designs. Some looked like flowing ribbons of light, others resembled floating crystals or organic creatures. Each one represented a different species that wanted to meet the humans who had changed everything. But the most impressive visitor was yet to come. Ambassador Park's communication device chimed with an urgent message, and his face went pale as he read it. "The High Council of the First Ones wants to meet with us," he whispered. Even Do-hyun, new to galactic politics, knew what that meant. The first ones were the oldest and most powerful civilization in the galaxy. They had been exploring space when most other species were still learning to make fire. They almost never communicated with younger civilizations, considering them too primitive to be worth their time. "They want to meet with humans," Dr. Hannah asked, her voice full of disbelief. "Not just meet," Ambassador Park replied, reading the message again to make sure he understood correctly. "They want to form a partnership. They're offering to share technology that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. The price they were asking seemed almost too good to be true. In exchange for their most advanced scientific knowledge, they wanted human advisors to help them understand the chaotic patterns of thinking that had made humans so effective against the Kandrian conspiracy. They've been logical for so long that they've forgotten how to be unpredictable," Do-hyun realized. "They need us to teach them how to think like survivors again." More messages kept arriving throughout the day. The trader guilds wanted human negotiators who could spot deception in business deals. The Explorer Corps requested human scouts who could notice dangers that advanced sensors missed. Even the peacekeeping forces asked for human strategists who could think like the criminals they were trying to catch. Each request came with generous offers of payment, technology, or knowledge. Rare minerals worth more than entire planets. Scientific discoveries that could solve Earth's energy problems forever. Medical techniques that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. "We're going to need a lot more diplomats," Ambassador Park said, looking overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. But Do-hyun was thinking about something else entirely. For his entire life, humans had been told they were behind other species, less advanced, less civilized, less evolved. Earth had always been the planet asking for help, begging for acceptance into galactic society. Now suddenly, the tables had turned completely. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy was admitting that humans had something they lacked. The very traits that had made humans seem primitive, their unpredictability, their ability to lie and deceive, their chaotic way of thinking, were exactly what the galaxy needed. "We're not the students anymore," Do-hyun said quietly. "We're the teachers." The transformation was happening so fast it was hard to believe. Within days, Earth had gone from being a junior member of galactic civilization to being one of its most valuable assets. Human thinking, human intuition, human survival instincts were suddenly the most sought-after commodities in the galaxy. And it had all started with one human guard who trusted his gut feelings over advanced alien technology. The grand throne room of the Valerian royal palace had never seen anything like this before. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy filled the massive space, their various forms creating a sea of colors, shapes, and sizes. They had come expecting a routine ceremony to celebrate the new partnerships between their worlds and humanity. None of them were prepared for what Queen Naya was about to announce. Do-hyun stood beside the throne, still weak from his injuries, but insisting on being present for this historic moment. His simple human uniform looked strange among all the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by the alien dignitaries. He had no idea what the Queen planned to say, but the serious expression on her ethereal face made him nervous. "My fellow beings," Queen Naya began, her musical voice carrying easily through the enormous hall, "today marks the end of an era that has lasted for 3,000 years. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. The Valerian nobles in the key front rows looked particularly worried. This wasn't the speech they had expected to hear. "For 3 millennia, I have ruled this world with logic, tradition, and the wisdom of ages," the Queen continued. "I have made decisions based on careful analysis, ancient protocols, and the weight of responsibility that comes with an immortal crown." Ambassador Park, standing with the Earth delegation, shot a questioning look at Do-hyun. But Do-hyun was just as confused as everyone else. Where was this going? "But recent events have shown me something that all my centuries of wisdom could not teach," Queen Naya said, her glow growing brighter with emotion. "There are ways of thinking, ways of being that cannot be learned from books or calculated by computers. There are truths that can only be discovered by those brave enough to follow." their hearts instead of their heads. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the normally chattering trade representatives had stopped their whispered conversations to listen. Something momentous was happening, and everyone could feel it. Captain Lee Do-hyun saved my life, not because of superior technology or advanced training, the Queen announced, turning to look directly at him. He saved me because he trusted feelings that he couldn't explain, because he acted on instincts that made no logical sense, because he chose to be unpredictable in a moment when predictability would have meant death. Do-hyun felt his face burning with embarrassment as thousands of alien eyes turned to stare at him. He had never wanted this kind of attention. In the weeks since that day, Queen Naya continued, I have watched him work, learned from his methods, and discovered that his way of thinking has opened possibilities I never knew existed. He has shown me that there is beauty in chaos, wisdom in spontaneity, and strength in vulnerability. The Valyrian court was starting to look genuinely alarmed now. Some of the older nobles were whispering urgently among themselves, clearly worried about where this speech was heading. Which is why, the Queen said, her voice growing stronger and more determined, I am formally abdicating my throne. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Gasps of shock echoed through the hall, followed by shouts of protest from the Valyrian nobles. Several alien ambassadors started talking frantically into their communication devices. The carefully organized ceremony dissolved into chaos within seconds, but Queen Naya wasn't finished. She raised her hands for silence, and gradually the crowd settled down enough to hear her final words. I am going to Earth, she announced simply. I want to learn what it means to be human, to think with my heart instead of just my mind, to make choices based on feelings rather than protocols, to experience the beautiful unpredictability that makes humans so remarkable. The silence that followed was so complete that Do-hyun could hear his own heartbeat. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy stood frozen in absolute shock. An immortal queen was giving up eternal power for love, for curiosity, for the chance to learn from a species that most of them had considered primitive just months. August, Your Majesty, Do-hyun finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure about this? Queen Naya smiled, and for the first time since he'd known her, she looked completely free. I've never been more sure of anything in my very long life. You've shown me that sometimes the most logical thing to do is to be completely illogical. The implications of her decision hit the galaxy like a shockwave. If an immortal queen was willing to give up everything to learn from humans, what did that say about humanity's true value? How many other ancient civilizations would now want to study human unpredictability more closely? Besides, Queen Naya added, with a mischievous grin that looked very unroyal, someone needs to teach me how to be properly chaotic. I think Earth is the perfect place to start. And with those words, the course of galactic history changed forever.